So, I'm Jim Schultz, and welcome to the Weekly Shred here for F Cubed. It is a Thursday night, and what we're going to do for the next 15-20 minutes, man, we're just going to try to get you guys to Shredsville, man. That's what these Thursday nights are all about. Just trying to do a little something to help you guys with your physique transformation. So if you guys are popping in for the first time, hey, toss me a new down in the chat box. I would love to know that this is the first time that you're checking us out. If you are an old, crusty veteran and you're checking us out again, hey, thank you very much. Toss me an old, crusty veteran down in the chat box. That would also be amazing. And so what we're gonna do tonight, we're gonna talk about carbs, man. We're gonna talk about Olive Garden breadsticks. Right, we're going to talk about Krispy Kreme donuts, right, for the next, 15, 20, 30 minutes or so. And we're going to talk about, hey, you're trying to get to Shredsville, right? You're trying to get a little bit leaner, maybe try to clean up that dad bod a little bit. And it's like, hey, how many carbs can I actually eat, right? Like, how many carbs can I actually get away with? So that's kind of what I want to talk about here tonight. And as always, if you guys have any questions or any comments along the way, drop them in the chat box. I believe I have the technology to bring them on screen in the production, so I'm actually pretty pumped about that. But before we get into the content tonight, quick little announcement. So coming up next week, so this is going to be Monday night and Tuesday night, I am offering a couple of free trainings. We're going to talk about the 5 secrets to getting shredded. Now, getting shredded, it can take out whatever meaning you want it to take on, right? Again, it could be cleaning up that dad bod. It could be just reclaiming some general level of fitness, or it could be just outright running for the mayor of Shredsville, right? It could be any of those 3. But if you're serious about fat loss right now, like if you're like, man, I want to make a push before Thanksgiving, right? We got about, 8-9 weeks before Thanksgiving? Just imagine what you could do if you got really serious for the next 8-9 weeks. And then, made a nice little push between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you hit 2021, on the ground running. Like, how incredible would that be come January 1 of 21? And so, a couple of free trainings coming up Monday night and Tuesday night. I'm going to actually drop a link to go ahead and... boom, there you go. So there is the link to sign up for the webinar. Give that a look, and if you can make it, awesome. If you can't, not awesome. But if you sign up, even if you can't make it live, you'll have access to the replay. So yeah. So okay, so let's go ahead and let's pop in to the content here this evening. So we're going to talk about how many carbs, how many fats you can ingest, you can enjoy on your way to Shredsville. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think it's a high number, or do you guys think it's a low number? Like, I think most people feel like, all right, man, like, I'm getting serious about my nutrition. I'm getting serious about my physique. I can't really, I'm not going to be able to have any carbs anymore. I'm not going to be able to have any fats anymore. I'm not going to be able to enjoy, any of these things anymore. And so I'm curious to know, like, what you guys think. Like, how do you guys figure out how many carbs, how much fat you can take in when you're getting serious about changing your physique? Specifically, when it comes to getting leaner. Because when you're building muscle, it's a different story, right? Like when you're going in the other direction, you're trying to become, a larger human, right? To add muscle to your frame, it's obviously going to be a little bit of a different discussion. But when you guys are getting serious about fat loss, I would be really, really curious to know where you guys are at on the carbs and the fats meter. And so while you guys are kind of thinking about that, drop that in the chat box. If you guys have something you want to share, I would love to know what it is. What I'm going to do, though, is let's cue this up. Let's talk about what this is going to look like. How many carbs and how much fat you can take in if you're getting serious about getting shredded. But before we get into the actual numbers, we have to kind of lay the groundwork. We have to build a foundation that's going to make sense so that we can understand kind of the numbers and the prognosis that I'm going to lay down for you guys tonight. So, okay. So if we look at our training, right? If we think about our training and we think about what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do while we're in the gym, remember that the goal, right? The objective while we are in the gym is to perform. The objective while we are in the gym is to really, really get after it. You're in the gym, your goal is not to burn fat, right? Like you're in the gym, like you need fuel for those sessions, right? Like you need to make sure that you are amply fueled up for your training sessions. And so we need to be really clear about something here on the front end, right? Like we are physique athletes. We're serious about physique transformation. We're not just trying to diet to get in a little better shape. We're not just trying to, do a little bit of cardio to maybe make some tiny improvements. Like, no. Like, we're serious about this, man. Like, we're serious about some lifestyle changes. Like, this is a big part of who we are. This is a big part of who we want to be. And so when we think in those terms, it's like, man, I need to take an athlete's approach to this whole thing. I need to take this on as an athletic endeavor, not just a little bit of working out, right? Not just like a little bit of something that I do. Like, no, like I'm training, right? So when I'm training, I need to be thinking about the fuel that I'm putting into my body. I need to be thinking about the fuel that I'm putting into my system. Now, I'm not even going to talk about meal timing necessarily tonight, although if you guys have questions about it, I'd be happy to kind of address that at least briefly. But I'm not going to talk about pre-workout and post-workout and things like that. I'm going to talk more big picture, right? I want to talk more kind of bird's eye view, like what this stuff is going to look like. So let's all be clear. You have to be fueled up for your training sessions. Okay. Of the macronutrients, you have protein, you have carbs, you have fats. Protein, it's not going to do too much to fuel you up. Like protein does a lot for satiation. Protein does a lot for keeping you full. Protein does a lot for, controlling your hunger. Protein does a lot for obviously your muscles, your skin, your hair. Like protein is unbelievable. It is life's elixir. But it's not going to do a lot for you in the gym. It's not going to give you the fuel that you can burn to perform at your best when you are on the rubber mats. It's just not going to do it, right? That's where you need to turn to the other two macronutrients, carbs or fats. You can turn to carbs, right? You can have that glycogen build up. You can have those glycogen stores. You can have that glucose at the ready that is, just primed and fueled up and ready to help you perform while you're in the gym. You can go that route, or you can go more of a fat adaptive or fat adapted route where you're using your fat stores as fuel. You're actually using, the fat nutrient, the fat macro as your fuel source. It doesn't really matter necessarily. I think that the edge goes to carbohydrates in terms of giving you the opportunity to perform better. But I know that some of the keto crazies out there might not like to hear that. And so I want to be kind of equal and fair and balanced here in this election year. And so I'm okay with either way. You can go carbs, you can go fats, you can go either way. I would encourage you to test it out and see which one you perform better on, right? Don't take somebody else's word for it. Don't take some random guy on the internet's word for it. Like, figure it out for yourself. Like, I'll hand you the flashlight, but you've got to go through the forest, right? You've got to kind of figure it out for yourself. And so I would test out both. I know for me, I don't do well when my fat is too high. I just don't. I don't feel that great. I don't perform very good. I do a lot better on a higher carbohydrate intake than I do a higher fat intake. Just how it feels. It's kind of how my body is made. And so it's taken me a trial and error to figure that out. So okay, so you've got your training, you've got your fuel. Tasty Trader saying, boom, I'm gonna bring that onto the screen. Simply because I can. Simply because we have the technology. Looking good. Hey, you're looking mighty fine yourself here this evening. So thank you very much for dropping in. As always, there, Tasty Trader. We really appreciate it. So all right, so cool. So you've got training, you've got fuel. Okay, of the fuel sources, it's gonna be carbs, it's gonna be fats. It just doesn't matter which one you choose. Just make sure that you are amply fueled up for your training sessions. Now I know that, a big thing these days is to train fasted, is to do, kind of your workouts in a fasted state. Whew, man, unless you have really big problems with digestion, unless you just feel amazing with no food in your stomach, which is not going to be too many people, I really don't think that that's a great idea. I really don't think there are too many advantages to doing that. I think there are only disadvantages, where because you don't have any fuel to burn, whether it be carbs or fats, because you don't have any fuel to burn, you're just not going to be able to perform at your best. And remember, our goal, our objective in the gym is not to burn fat, right? That's the other 22 hours in the day. Our goal, our objective in the gym is to perform. Our goal, our objective in the gym is to be our best, right? And I think for 98, 99% of the population, we're not going to be our best without some kind of fuel in our systems. Now, just a quick little personal, kind of note here. I personally, I train in the mornings. I train early in the mornings. I train at 5:30, 6 o'clock is usually when I get rolling. I don't eat a ton of food before I train because I don't like to, right? I don't like to have a huge, massive meal before I train because I get up at 5 or 5:30 and, I'm out the door within 20 minutes. So I just slam down usually just a shake and some piece of fruit, banana, strawberry, blueberry, something like that, some mix of them all, maybe just one of the three if I'm kind of, in a shred season myself, right? And so I'm usually only about 30, 40 grams of protein and maybe 15 to 25 grams of carbs. It's not much. It's not much at all. And then I have some fish oil and stuff like that. But that's just me. I've just figured that out through trial and error, right? And I've tried to train fasting. I just feel like porcelain, man. I feel like I can never get warm. I can never get loose. I can never get a pump. I'm just man, what am I doing? Why am I even in here? I should be at home. I should be eating. I should have done something before I came to the gym. And so test it out for yourself, right? And for those of you that maybe you train later in the day, in the evening or in the afternoon, you have a chance to have a meal or two. If that's the case, you can probably have bigger meals before you train. And so, definitely test it out and experiment with, where you feel best, but you got to have something before you train, man. You absolutely got to have something before you train. So Dr. Z said, I had popcorn again tonight, but no beer this time, so I guess I'm reducing my carbs. Well, beer doesn't really, beer has some carbs, but beer has alcohol, the fourth macro, right? And so you're reducing that fourth macro there, Dr. Z. And so you got it covered, man. You don't need my help. And so then we've got Tasty Trader. I'm deciding whether or not to eat a delicious scone right now. Got room in my daily macros, and my stomach is growling. You got room in your macros. I don't know why there is a question there. You didn't put a question mark in the comments, so I'm assuming that your mind is already made up. As it should be. As it should be. Okay, so how do I figure out now how many carbs and how much fat I can actually eat? So let's take a look at that. So, all right. So if I take a look at this guy. So here's what we're working with. So how many carbs and how many fats? And I'll tell you what is an amazing thing. When you're about to go live for the weekly shred and you realize that there's a huge glaring error on one of your slides and you're like, well, 45 seconds till the lights go on, we're not going to be able to fix this. And so my apologies for the fact that there is a huge error on the slide that we'll talk about here in a second. But still, we're gonna power through and muscle our way here to the end. So, all right, so how many carbs, how many fats? So let's say that you're 200 pounds, right? So some of you, listening, watching, you're a lot less than that. You're a lot more than that, right? Let's use this as our baseline example, and then we can extrapolate out to other, potential examples that we have. Because I have my trusty calculator here. I got this guy right here, so we can figure out whatever you guys want to figure out. Don't you even worry about it. So let's say you're 200 pounds. Okay. The rule of thumb, of course, is you want to be at about a gram per pound of body weight. Even a little bit more than that would actually be okay and potentially beneficial, right? I usually have the athletes inside of Full Throttle more like 1.1 or 1.3 grams per pound, depending on where they're at in the shred season, depending on how lean they might be, and depending on, how much they have to go. Like if you've got 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds to go, you may not need to eat 1 gram per pound. You can probably do like 0.8 or 0.7 grams per pound, just because your caloric intake is going to be really, really, really high at the beginning, as it should be, and you're still going to be just dumping gobs of fat, right? And so it's like, all right, you probably don't need to have a ton of protein in the beginning because your carbohydrate and your fat intake is going to be really, really high. But let's say that you're 200 pounds. Okay, look at the left hand. Look at the left hand example, or you can look at the right hand example actually, because they're both the same. And that was the error that I made. So if you look at the left hand example, your protein is 200 grams. That's going to be 800 calories. There's 4 calories per gram of protein. Once you've allotted for that, line item in your budget, right, in your macro budget, the rest, carbs and fats, you are free to spend that however you want to spend that. So like, for example, here I just gave a pretty balanced approach. So if you did like 250 grams of carbs, that would be 1,000 calories because there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates. That would leave you with about 67 grams of fat. That's 600 calories. So the key is you want to start with a total caloric intake of about 12x your body weight. So if I'm 200 pounds, 12x my body weight would be 2,400 calories. So then I do my protein first. You want to get that out of the way, and then you can divvy it up between carbs and fats. And there are like some minimum thresholds for fats that you kind of want to be aware of and things of that nature. But I want to really keep this extremely simple, right? If you're taking a pretty balanced approach, then you're always going to eat enough fats so that your testosterone is in check and you feel good, and your skin is good and your hair is good, your brain is functioning correctly. Nobody's going to eat just pure carbs, right? Like nobody's going to eat protein and like pixie sticks, right? Like I've not been made aware of that diet. That's even dumber than the alkaline diet, and the alkaline diet is pretty dumb. And so as long as you're eating some kind of fat source, you're going to be fine. You're going to be absolutely fine. And of course, if you want to go the keto route, your carbohydrates are really, really low, like under 25 or under 30, and it's mostly fat, bacon, olive oil, avocados, that kind of stuff. What if you were 150 pounds? So let's say for some of my lovely ladies out there, let's say you're 150 pounds and you would like to be 130 pounds, right? So you're thinking, I'm 150 pounds. I'm on the outskirts of Shredsville, but man, I would love to get at least kind of, 3-4 blocks away from city center, right? I don't need to be, studio space, in the town square. I'm cool with just being kind of on the outskirts of where all the action is at. It'd be about 130 for me. Like, okay, what would that look like for you? Well, let's do some math. If I'm 150 pounds, what's 12 times 150? I don't even know if I need my calculator for that. That's 1,800, right? So you're looking at 1,800 total calories. Okay, so I've got 1,800 total calories. How many grams of protein do I want to take in? You want to do 150 grams because you're 150 pounds. So just keep it really simple. Well, if it's 150 grams and there's 4 calories per gram, that's 600 calories towards protein. So then what are you left with? We had 1,800 to begin with. We take off 600. We have 1,200 left. So I basically now have 1,200 calories that I can allot between carbohydrates and fats. So let's say I want to do like an even split, right? Like 600 calories for carbs and 600 calories for fats. Well, if I look on the slide here, I see that 600 calories for fats is about 67 grams. So you'd be at about 67 grams for fats. And then if I had 600 calories for carbs, right, remember there are 4 calories per gram. So if I take 600 and I divide it by 4, I'm left with 150 grams of carbs. So that would be amazing, right? You've got 150 grams of protein, 150 grams of carbs, 67 grams of fat. And then you can test that out, right? You can kind of see how you feel, see how you perform, see how you progress, right? Looking at the scale, looking at your clothes, looking at your Instagram photos, right? Just using all the basic metrics of, gauging your progress or lack thereof, right? Obviously no filters. And so these are a couple of examples of how many carbs and how much fat you can eat. So once you do this, then what do you do? So once you do this, right? So once you start at 12x and you've got your protein intake locked and loaded, you've got your carbohydrate intake locked and loaded, you've got your fat intake, locked, loaded, ready to go. You got bacon in the pan, you're set. How do you know if you have found the right level? Well, I obviously have to give a quick shameless plug for the metabolism matching system that's inside of Full Throttle that does all this for you. If you don't want to think about it, you want to send me some of those internet munums and be part of the course, and give that a look. You guys can kind of find that over at livefcube.com. But if you did want to do this yourself, how would you begin to make the adjustments that are necessary? Well, that's what I have for you guys on the next and final slide. So if we take a look at the final slide, I'm stuck, right? Or you could even say, how do I know I'm not stuck, right? Like, how do I know that this is working? Well, one thing that's not on the slide, let's kick it off with this. How much body weight should you be losing per week? I'm curious to know what you guys think, but I can't wait that long because there's like a 15-second delay between what I say and when you guys hear it. And so if I sit here, there's going to be a time-released awkward pause that's going to hit you guys in like 45 seconds. So I'm not going to wait. But just think about it as like a thought experiment. Like, I'm curious, how much do you think you should be able to lose per week that is a reasonable, sustainable amount of weight loss per week? Do you think it's 5 pounds? Do you think it's 3 pounds? Do you think it's 1 pound? Like, how do we figure out how much we can lose, every single week and it be classified as a pretty sustainable rate of progress? Most serious athletes in the world of physique transformation would say that, oh wait, we got a couple. Boom. Okay, so check this out. Look at these guys. Nice. So I was able to leg it out long enough. So my man R. Jones, hey, welcome back. I know that you checked us out last week. There, R. Jones, we appreciate you, man. You are an old, crusty veteran. Thank you for watching again. 1 pound a week. So I love that. That's very, very good. You're very, very close. So R. Jones said 1 pound a week. Then Dr. Z said 0.5% of body weight per week. Dr. Z, man, it's almost like you've been paying attention to the content inside of Full Throttle because I know you are an athlete in the course. Yes, 0.5% of body weight, up to maybe 1% of body weight per week is a great metric to shoot for. Now, Jones, I love what you said too, man, because 1 pound a week for most people is going to be a pretty slow and steady rate of weight loss, which is what you want. That's always what you want, right? The biggest mistake that I see people make is going too hard, too fast. Like, yeah, you can cut 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds a week, for the first couple of weeks. You can easily do that from water, sodium, glycogen depletion, and just all that stuff. But man, it's going to get really hard. And once you get hangry, it's game over. Like, we both know that is true. So a much better approach is like, hey, let's just do this modestly. Let's just take a very, strategic approach to this. And let's go for, you could do a flat rate of 1 pound per week. I love it. I think 0.5% of your body weight per week is maybe a little bit better of a metric, simply because it takes into account what your personal body weight is, right? Like, for example, if I'm 200 pounds, then 0.5% of my body weight is 1 pound. So it works out perfectly. But what if I'm 280 pounds, right? I mean, I've had, some big dudes join Full Throttle and make some incredible progress, starting at, 260, 270, 280 pounds, and then getting down closer to the 200 level. And so it's like, well, for them, they can probably lose a little bit more in the beginning. They're probably between 0.5%, maybe up to 1%. So now it's like, you're losing 1.5 pounds to 2.5 pounds a week, and that's perfectly fine, right? And so when you're in a situation like that, you kind of want to be careful. Also, the other side of it is, hey, what if I am, a slim and trim lady and I'm 165 pounds, right? And I want to be 145 pounds. It's like, well, 1 pound a week might be a little bit too quick for you. You might want to go a little underneath that at 0.5%. You'd be a little under 1 pound per week. 1 pound per week is probably fine. But I'm just saying that I think it's a little bit better. I think it's a little bit more accurate if we scale it relative to the body weight that the athlete might be at when they begin. And so I wanted to say that kind of on the front end. So, okay. So if you're losing at that rate, you're not stuck, right? If you're losing at the rate on average, every week it's not going to be like that. But if you take an average over a couple of weeks or a month or 6 to 8 weeks for sure, then, if you see an average that falls in line with the numbers that we just talked about, you are not stuck. You are doing everything perfectly well done. But what if you do get stuck? Because you will get stuck, right? Hit a sticking point, hit a plateau. What do I do? Here's the first thing that you want to do. When you make a change, you want to make sure that you give that change some time to take hold, to have an effect. And that will be at least 1 to 2 weeks, right? So if you make a change, which we're going to talk about the change here in number 2, but if you make the change, right, don't expect it to be magic in 36 hours, right? You got to give this thing time to marinate. You got to give this thing time to simmer, at least on the back burner, right? And so give it a week, give it 10 days, give it 2 weeks, and then you'll know if it was a successful change, right? Now, if you follow number 2, it's going to be pretty hard to not have successful changes, although it does happen from time to time. So for number 2, how much should you change? Well, you want to focus on small changes, but how small do you want to focus on with your changes? Well, I think about 20 carbs per cut is a pretty good round number to think about. Now, again, you kind of want to scale this based on your body weight. You kind of want to scale this based on your own unique metabolism. But 20 carbohydrates and maybe 3 grams of fat per cut is a pretty significant cut. That's about a 100 calorie cut, give or take, right? Now, again, it depends on a ton of factors. It depends on a myriad of things that you need to take into account. But it's impossible for me to do all that here tonight. So I'm just giving you guys, kind of baselines, kind of foundations, right? For those of you that might be interested in digging deeper, I would encourage you to check out Full Throttle because all of this stuff is in there in detail that will be based on your unique metabolism. But if you guys are just looking for a starting point, this is where you can begin. So small changes, about 20 carbs, about 3 grams of fat. Before I get to number 3, let me make one more comment. If you are not consistent with your nutrition, if you are not consistent with how you're fueling your body, and that doesn't mean you have to track. You guys know I'm a huge fan of tracking, but it doesn't mean you have to track. I'm actually not tracking right now, and it's been kind of fun, actually. But if you're not consistent, right? If you don't have some kind of strategic plan that you are executing, you can't expect any of this to work. You can't expect any of it to work. You have to just completely temper your expectations, right? You can't expect to, nail your targets one day out of the week and then just magically, hit your objectives. Just magically, execute against your goals. It's not going to work that way, right? You've got to be consistent. You've got to put in the work. You've got to really, really follow through on your protocols, whatever they might be that you've set for yourself. So inconsistent effort cannot possibly expect consistent results. So I wanted to make sure that I brought that up. But number 3, if you do this, if you do what we've talked about for the last 17 minutes, and oh hey, boom, we got James Marsh checking us. Hey James, what's going on, man? I appreciate you checking us out tonight, dude. Hopefully you're getting a little bit of something from this. So if you do this, if you follow these protocols, if you execute what we've talked about tonight for the last 16 minutes, it will work. You will get shredded. However shredded you want to be. Right now, again, shredded is a relative term, and I kind of use it, kind of tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it can be legally peeled, where it's like, yeah, like your glutes have triceps. Like, you can get to that point if you want to. You absolutely can. That's what I'm going to be shooting for the next time I step on stage. But you just might want to trim up the dab out a little bit. That's fine, right? You can get, a softer version of shredded, right? You can get like 2007 shredded, which isn't even really that shredded, but it still looks pretty darn good, right? And so you can really figure this out for yourself. This will work. This map, this framework, right? This blueprint that we've laid out for you guys tonight. Just very simple, very generic, right? If you follow this, it will work really well. Do 12x your body weight, figure out your protein, then do your carbs, then do your fats, and then follow this little 3-step, I guess you could call it a process for how you make changes, right? If you're hitting the weight loss goals that you want to hit or need to hit or should be hitting, about 0.5% or about 0.5% per week, then you're going to be in really, really great shape, man. You're going to be in really, really great shape. So I don't know, guys. I think that was pretty good for the weekly shred tonight. If you guys have any final comments, you can toss them my way here in the last minute or two. But let me also remind you guys, check it out in the chat box. I dropped it on one of the first comments. I have some free trainings coming up next week. The 5 secrets to getting shredded. So we're going to go even deeper than what we talked about here tonight to give you guys some more tips and tactics that you can toss in your toolbox for some solid alliteration here on a late Thursday night. It's totally free. Give it a look. If you can't make it live, you'll still have access to the replay. And so just sign up, and I think it'll be worth your while. If you guys want to check out other content, you can bounce on down into the description. You will find livefcube.com. You will find the YouTube channel, which you are clearly on. You will also find the podcast. You'll be able to find Full Throttle Fat Loss, which is over on LiveFcube, if you guys want to give that a look as well. And the sign-up sheet for the webinar will also be in the description after the show. I'll probably get it up there tomorrow. So I know a lot of people watch this on the replay. So if you're watching it on the replay and you don't see or want to go into the chat box, you can find the link to the free trainings down in the description. So that's it, man. That's the weekly shred. I really hope that this helped you guys out. I really hope this gave you guys some new insights into how to achieve the physique that you want for yourself. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday night. Hey, James. Thank you too, man. Thank you for popping in. I'm so excited that I can bring these comments on the screen. You guys don't understand. If you guys, some of you have been following the weekly shred since I started it like a year and a half ago. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. It was a total train wreck, right? It's only a hair better now, but at least now I can bring the comments on the screen, and I'm like, man, I've been trying to do this for like a year and a half, and so it's really, really cool. So I just bring every single one on that I possibly can. And so Tasty Trader. So we have one quick question. So there we go. So 20 grams less of carbs and 3 grams less of fat per week if stuck. Yes, exactly. So for example, right, let me give some hard numbers behind that. So let's say that you are stalled, right? And so you've had, a week, maybe more of stalled scale weights, right? It depends. You've got to kind of, you've got to use some experience when it comes to determining when it's time to make an adjustment. But I'll just say this as a blanket statement. This doesn't necessarily apply to you, Tasty Trader, because I know you so well. We've gotten to know each other over the years. But for a lot of people that are just starting out, they make adjustments too quickly. They make too many adjustments too quickly. They need to exercise more patience. So for most people, I would probably wait until you have 2 consecutive weeks where you've been stalled on the scale. And some of you would be thinking, Jim, 2 weeks? Bro, ain't nobody got time for that. Like 2 weeks? Are you serious? Like, yeah, I'm serious. Remember, this isn't an 8-week boot camp, right? This isn't a 7-day, detox. Like, we're doing this for real, right? We're doing this to keep the shreds, right? We're going to apply for citizen status in Shredsville, and we're going to stay there to some degree. We're not going to walk around legally peeled all the time, but we're going to change our lives. That's what we're trying to do. And so we got to take this seriously, and we got to give it the time that it requires. But for you and for somebody that might be a little bit more experienced, I would say about, if you're stalled for a week, then take your numbers down by 20 grams on the carbs and 3 grams on the fats. And it sort of depends, right? Like if you like your fats, then take down more carbs. If you like your carbs, then take down more fats, right? And so you want to kind of adjust it based on your own personal preference. But yeah, if I was eating 200 carbs, I'd go down to 180. And if I was eating 70 fat, I'd go down to like 67. So I wouldn't make huge changes. I would make very gradual changes. And then of course there's like the refeed side of things, the refeed element and all of that. Maybe we'll talk about that next week because there's some interesting new research around refeeds that is really fascinating. And so I think that would be a really good topic for next week actually. So okay, so Jones, so my man R. Jones, what's your opinion about intermittent fasting? Come on, bro. You gonna drop that on me at the very end of the weekly shred, dude? I need at least 19 minutes to talk about that. And so what's your opinion about intermittent fasting? Oh man, yeah. So I'll give you the short version. Maybe we'll do a whole shred about intermittent fasting. So let me be very honest. I've never tried it. And so take what I'm gonna say next, with that understanding. I want to be very, very, true, and I want to be very, very authentic. with you guys. I've never tried it. I've never tried it for two reasons. Number one, I'm pretty sure, based on just my own thinking and view of what intermittent fasting is and does, and also what the science has to say, I'm pretty sure that intermittent fasting is not going to be optimal for muscle building because you're just not giving yourself enough frequency of protein doses throughout the day, right? So Jones, I'll get to the yay or nay here in a second. You're just not giving yourself enough frequency of doses throughout the day, right? And so it's like, okay, for that reason alone, I'm not super interested. Okay, so for that reason alone, I would give it a nay. But there's a second reason actually that I think is more important. So I personally, so some of you know my story. I grew up, I was a really big kid, I was really overweight, all that kind of stuff. And, my body naturally wants to be a lot bigger than it is. Along that journey, like I've had in my young adulthood, and even when I started bodybuilding, like I had a lot of issues with binging all the time. I had a lot of issues with, being really hard and strict for a while, but then just going berserk for, some short period of time, a couple hours, a couple days, a month, right? Whatever it ended up being. And so that's still kind of part of who I am in a big way. And so I have to be very cognizant of that. And I know just from talking to so many people in the world around me in, the fitness circles, that is, that's a really common thing. Like that's a really, really common thing. And so I don't love intermittent fasting because I think that without our knowing, it kind of feeds that starve binge cycle. You know what I'm saying? Like it kind of perpetuates. Oh no, I actually nailed it the second time. It actually perpetuates that starve binge cycle to where it's like, I'm starving for 18 hours a day or whatever it is, 16 hours, whatever it is, right? Like I'm fighting against my natural urge to eat. And then for 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever, I just get to eat a ton of food. I think a lot of people use that as an excuse to overeat. I think a lot of people use that as an excuse to binge. And I think a lot of people use that as an excuse to just totally blow their caloric deficit. And so basically it's a nay, Jones. It's a nay for those two reasons, but it's fine. I don't know a lot of people. I was going to say I know a lot of people, but that wouldn't be true. I know a couple of people that I don't have very many friends. I know a couple of people that have had a lot of success with intermittent fasting. And so if it's something that might jive with you, like your schedule and just whatever, then give it a shot, man. Like that's just my take on it, right? It's not superior to anything else, though. When it comes to fat loss, it's not superior to anything else. And so it's always the caloric deficit that is the driver. And it doesn't matter if you do macros, intermittent fasting, keto, whatever. It doesn't make a difference. It's not going to be superior for fat loss. Now, could there be some other health benefits to fasting? Yes, there possibly could be. And that's kind of outside of my own area of both expertise and, well, I was going to say interest, but I'm sort of interested in that. But outside my area of expertise, I don't really know. And so those are kind of my thoughts. You are welcome, Jones. So Jerry, man, what's going on, buddy? And so Jerry dropping that profanity comment earlier that I'm not going to be bringing on the screen. So I appreciate you keeping it clean next time, brother. So Jerry, how do I lose my 10 pounds of belly fat that I can't lose? Oh, man. You guys just giving me these easy questions at the very end, right? So Jerry, so here's what you do, man. You do exactly what we talked about tonight. You follow it to the T. No questions asked, right? Follow the protocol. Execute what we talked about tonight. The protein, the carbs, the fats. You make the adjustments. You monitor your progress. You be consistent with your execution, and you will win. You be consistent with your execution, and you will lose 10 pounds of belly fat, 20 pounds of belly fat, 30 pounds of belly fat. You'll lose as much as you want to lose. It's completely within your control. It just requires execution. That's it. Now, you specifically asked about belly fat, and that's a really, really common thing. The reality is we can't spot reduce fat on our bodies. And so, like a lot of women, they don't like the way their thighs or their butts look, right? And so their hamstrings, they would like their legs to be firmer and harder and more conditioned, okay? A lot of guys, it's the gut, it's the love handles, it's the lower back. At least I know that's what it is for me. And so it's like, man, I would really love to be able to trim up, these lower handles, right? The lower back love handle mix. Well, our bodies, they're going to do it when our bodies want to do it. And usually the area that you store fat the most easily is going to be the area where it comes off last. And I hate to say that, right? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that really is just the truth. And so if the area that you tend to store a lot of fat that you would really like to work on happens to be your belly gut area, that's probably going to be one of the last areas to come off. So, if you want to lose 10 pounds, like going from where you are now to down 10 pounds, that would be amazing, right? You're going to look better. You're going to feel better. You're going to notice a difference, but it's not going to all come from the area that you want it to come. And so that's just a product of where, you got to grind, right? You got to do it. You got to execute. And then you need to evaluate at different points in the process to where you say, all right, like I've lost X. I feel pretty good about that. Okay, let's try to go for another Y or another Z or another 5, another 8, whatever, until you get the look that you want. And then, obviously you reverse out of it and you do diet breaks, you do things like that to, kind of maintain what you have worked so hard to achieve. And so, that's kind of a general comment. Oh, dude, don't even worry about it, Jerry. It's all good, man. Just trying to keep it clean on the shred. No, it's all good, man. But that's kind of a generic, kind of a general comment for your question, right? But it's the truth. You're just not going to be able to spot reduce the belly fat. You're going to have to just go for a holistic approach to getting into Shredsville, right? Like when you go into Shredsville, it's not like a shopping mall where you walk in, it's like, oh, belly fat's over here, the thigh fat is over there, the cellulite, right, is in the back of the store that nobody ever goes to because nobody wants it. It's not how it works, right? You just got to go there and execute and then see what happens. And that was definitely the worst analogy that has ever been used in the history of the internet. And so, so that's it. So, man, I appreciate you guys, man. Some great comments. Got people, man, this is really awesome. Jerry, one final comment tonight. This is good. Is diet or exercise more important? And the answer, of course, is everybody together. Both. Right? You want to do both. If you're really serious about this, both need to be a big part of what you do. But, all kidding aside, your diet is going to be the bigger driver of the two. But if you're really looking for a lifestyle change where you really want to, transform your physique, you got to have both, man. It's peanut butter and oatmeal. It can't be one without the other. So, great question, though, at the very end. So, you guys are awesome, man. If you guys want to, check out the free trainings next week. The link is right there in the chat box. That'd be awesome. Check out the other content, Live F Cubed, the rest of the YouTube channel, all that stuff. If you guys want to hit me with a thumbs up on this video, that would really, really help a lot. If you want to share it with a friend, maybe tag a friend in the comments or tweet this out or put it on Facebook or whatever, that would also help me out a ton. And that's it, man. That's it for the Weekly Shred. We will see you guys next week.